He boasted to those in his inner circle that he could move between both women whenever he pleased, carrying on a secret double life with his ex-wife while simultaneously playing the role of a devoted partner to his 19-year-old girlfriend. Matthew Edgar believed he was the master of his own universe, a man who could maintain an active relationship with his ex-wife Montana while stringing along a brilliant young nursing student named Libby Lewis. In his mind, both women were under his complete influence, bound to his desires, and forced to compete for his affection. But when 19-year-old Libby, a high school valedictorian with a bright future ahead of her, finally uncovered the full depth of his deceit and took the brave step to walk away, his fragile ego shattered into violent rage. On a dark Texas highway on Halloween morning in 2020, his toxic entitlement reached a terrifying climax, leading to an unthinkable act that claimed a young life and sparked an extraordinary 11-month manhunt across East Texas. Welcome back to Brian's Criminal Unmasking, the space where we pull back the curtain on the darkest human motives and dismantle the lies people tell to cover their tracks. If you believe that true crime stories should uncover the raw, unvarnished truth without sugarcoating the actions of ruthless individuals, take a moment right now to smash that like button. Leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel with all notifications turned on so you never miss an episode where we unmask the truth behind the headlines. To understand how a promising young life was so tragically cut short on a quiet stretch of Farm to Market Road 83, you have to look past the tragic crime scene and examine the toxic web Matthew Edgar constructed around himself. Born on October 4, 2001, in Shreveport, Louisiana, Libby Heather Lewis, known affectionately to everyone as Libby, was a force of nature from her earliest years. Raised in the small East Texas town of Hemphill, a tight-knit community of just over 1,000 residents, Libby was loved by everyone who crossed her path. She shared an unbreakable bond with her mother, Darcy Bass, who described her daughter as not just her child, but her absolute best friend. Libby possessed a brilliant mind and an exceptionally caring heart. She achieved the title of valedictorian at Hemphill High School, a prestigious academic honor that reflected her tireless work ethic and sharp intellect. But academic excellence was only a small part of who she was. From a young age, Libby felt a deep, instinctive calling to serve others. While still in high school, she earned her certification as a nursing assistant and spent 2 years working at the Hemphill Care Center nursing home. She threw herself into caring for elderly residents, holding their hands, listening to their stories, and bringing vibrant energy into their lives. By 2020, she was a freshman studying nursing at Stephen F. Austin State University, having earned a competitive scholarship funded by her former employer, who recognized her immense potential to become a skilled healthcare professional. Her dream was clear and unwavering. She planned to complete her nursing degree and go on to become a physician's assistant. In recorded videos from that time, Libby spoke candidly about her future, expressing pure excitement about the goals she was set to accomplish. She was independent, ambitious, and surrounded by friends who adored her. But when she was 18 years old and completing her senior year of high school, her path crossed with 23-year-old Matthew Edgar. Edgar was 5 years older than Libby and came with a complicated, tumultuous past. He was a pipeline construction worker, a father of 2 young sons, and a man who was actively navigating a messy separation from his ex-wife, Montana Bockel. Beneath his charming exterior lay a troubling history with local law enforcement, including a 2014 vehicle pursuit where he crashed into a Hemphill Police Department patrol vehicle, resulting in a severe leg injury for an officer. For a young teenage girl focused on her studies and building a life, Edgar's world of adulthood, children, and complex relationships seemed mature and intriguing. But in reality, Libby was stepping directly into a trap set by a man who viewed women not as partners, but as possessions to be manipulated. From the very beginning of their relationship in 2019, Edgar established a pattern of profound unfaithfulness and psychological control. While presenting himself to Libby as a reformed man ready to build a quiet life, he maintained an active, secretive relationship with his ex-wife, Montana. He played both women off each other, creating an environment of jealousy and competition. Initially, tension existed between Libby and Montana. Friends recalled that Montana seemed resentful of Libby's presence in her children's lives. But then, almost overnight, the dynamic shifted in a deeply unsettling way. Montana suddenly attempted to become close friends with Libby, engaging in frequent phone calls and social visits. To Libby, who was naturally trusting and eager to maintain harmony for the sake of Edgar's young boys, this sudden friendship seemed like a positive step forward. But her mother, Darcy, and her close friends saw right through the illusion. They recognized that Edgar was using both women, keeping them locked in his orbit while manipulating their perceptions of reality. Edgar was maintaining a double life, stepping between both relationships whenever he pleased, while ensuring that neither woman felt secure enough to leave him. As 2020 progressed, Edgar's behavior grew increasingly possessive and erratic. His heavy drinking triggered intense outbursts of anger, and he began asserting strict control over Libby's friendships, her social outings, and her university schedule. When Libby attempted to set boundaries or focus on her academic studies, Edgar's resentment flared. He could not tolerate her independence, nor could he accept that her future was rapidly expanding beyond the narrow borders of his control. Those closest to Libby began noticing subtle, alarming changes. The bright, confident valedictorian was becoming stressed, anxious, and quiet. Her cousin, Sydney Ebarb, who had herself survived a domestic situation, immediately recognized the subtle signs of physical and psychological mistreatment. Edgar had begun laying his hands on Libby, breaking her self-confidence down while isolating her from those who loved her most. Out of a desire to protect her mother from pain, Libby kept the full extent of the physical mistreatment secret from Darcy, attempting to handle the dangerous situation on her own. By August of 2020, Libby reached a moment of absolute clarity. She sent Edgar a definitive text message that exposed the reality of their relationship and her growing fear of his violent temper. She wrote that, while she wanted a peaceful home, she could no longer tolerate his behavior when he consumed alcohol. She explicitly stated that she was terrified of him, noting that he had laid his hands on her on multiple occasions, and firmly declared that she deserved better. Shortly after sending this message, Libby confided in her cousin Sydney, sharing a disturbing photograph showing physical damage to her face, including a broken nose inflicted by Edgar during a fit of rage. When Sydney warned her that such behavior only escalates, Libby quietly replied that she knew. On October 4th, 2020, Libby celebrated her 19th birthday. It should have been a joyful milestone marking her transition into adulthood and her success at university. Instead, it exposed the cold, calculating nature of the man she was trying to leave. On that exact day, while pretending to celebrate Libby, Edgar sent a damning text message directly to his ex-wife, Montana. In the message, he casually boasted that he had not been unfaithful to Libby with multiple women, but rather just with Montana, adding a light-hearted comment to downplay his betrayal. This explicit text confirmed what those around Libby had long suspected. Edgar was actively maintaining an ongoing relationship with his ex-wife throughout his time with Libby, callously betraying both women while feeding his own bloated sense of entitlement. By the autumn of 2020, Libby gathered the immense courage required to break off the relationship for good. She ended her dynamic with Edgar, choosing to throw all her energy into her university studies, her clinical work, and her long-term goal of becoming a physician's assistant. For Edgar, this rejection was an unbearable blow to his ego. In a small town like Hemphill, watching his former partner thrive, excel academically, and build a happy life without him, drove his jealousy into an absolute obsession. In his mind, if he could no longer dictate her life, no one else would ever be allowed to share a future with her. If you are still watching at this point, drop a comment with, "I'm still here." Let's see who is truly following this shocking story of double lives, betrayal, and a fugitive on the run. The tension reached its breaking point on the evening of October 30th, 2020. A local acquaintance, Bobby Ozan, was hosting a pre-Halloween gathering at his home. Libby arrived at the party determined to enjoy an evening of fun with her friends, dressing up and celebrating after weeks of grueling university coursework. However, Edgar also arrived at the gathering, accompanied by his ex-wife, Montana. Throughout the night, Libby focused her attention on her friends, deliberately ignoring Edgar and making it clear that her decision to end the relationship was final. As the gathering wound down in the early hours of Halloween morning, around 2:30 in the morning, Edgar discovered something that pushed his rage over the edge. Libby decided she was going to spend the remainder of the night resting at Bobby Ozan's house rather than returning to her own residence or leaving with Edgar. To a man consumed by possessiveness, this was the ultimate public rejection. Edgar's temper exploded into physical violence inside the residence. He launched a violent assault against his ex-wife, Montana, choking her and causing severe damage to her parked vehicle. Bobby Ozan was forced to physically intervene, restraining Edgar to stop the attack. As Edgar was forced out, he shouted loud, chilling threats, declaring that he was going to end everyone's life. Following the altercation, Montana fled the scene to seek refuge at Edgar's grandparents' property, while Libby left shortly after in her own vehicle. From the safety of his relative's home, Montana began exchanging tense text messages with Edgar, attempting to track his location. Edgar was furious, falsely accusing Montana of assisting Libby in moving on with her life. At 3:22 in the morning on October 31st, Edgar sent a message to Montana stating that he was leaving the area. When Montana texted back moments later asking where Libby was, Edgar replied at precisely 3:34 in the morning with a single, terrifying word: dead. At approximately 5:15 that morning, a resident driving along Farm to Market Road 83, roughly 2.5 miles east of Hemphill, noticed a vehicle pulled over on the grassy shoulder with its driver's side door resting wide open. Thinking a motorist might be experiencing mechanical trouble, the driver stopped to investigate. Inside the vehicle, 19-year-old Libby Lewis was found motionless, slumped over the steering wheel, having sustained a fatal wound to her neck from a high-powered rifle. Responding emergency crews and law enforcement officers made an additional shocking discovery at the scene. Parked directly behind Libby's car was a Ford pickup truck belonging to Edgar's relative. Lying on the ground between the two vehicles, curled in a fetal position, was Matthew Edgar himself. He was covered in victim blood, but was completely uninjured. Nearby in the tall grass, officers recovered a .308 caliber rifle, the weapon that would subsequently be linked to bullet fragments inside the vehicle. Physical evidence surrounding Libby's car revealed signs of a severe struggle. The rear passenger window had been struck. The driver's side door bore heavy impact marks from being forced open, and defensive marks were present on Libby's arms, proving she had fought bravely for her life. Lead investigator J.P. McDuffie arrived at the scene and immediately recognized the personal nature of the crime. The physical positioning of Libby's body indicated that she had initially pulled over and engaged in conversation with someone she knew, completely unaware of the extreme danger she was in. At 7:30 that morning, Libby's mother, Darcy Bass, arrived at the perimeter after hearing rumors that something terrible had happened. In heartbreaking body camera footage recorded by responding officers, Darcy can be heard desperately pleading for information about her daughter, asking officers over 20 times where her child was before collapsing to the ground in overwhelming grief when the devastating truth was finally revealed. Detectives transported Edgar to a local medical facility where investigator McDuffie conducted an extensive interview recorded on camera. Edgar lay in his hospital bed, presenting a flat, disoriented demeanor, claiming complete amnesia regarding the entire night. He insisted that his last memory was sitting on his porch after putting his children to bed, claiming total ignorance of how he ended up on the side of the highway covered in blood. However, detectives noted a glaring mismatch between his verbal claims and his physical body language. When presented with questions about the events, his facial expressions remained oddly vacant, lacking any genuine shock, grief, or remorse. Furthermore, forensic testing completely shattered his claims of innocence. A detailed analysis of Edgar's trousers revealed a distinct drop of Libby's blood on the fabric, the single item among 19 tested crime scene samples that contained matching genetic material from both the victim and the suspect. Digital analysis of mobile phone tower data showed Edgar's device pinging in the immediate vicinity of Farm to Market Road 83 at the exact time of the incident, disproving his statements about remaining on his porch. Combined with the chilling text message sent at 3:34 in the morning containing the word dead, the evidence against Edgar was overwhelming. In November of 2020, Matthew Edgar was officially arrested in his hospital bed and charged with the murder of Libby Lewis. However, in February of 2021, due to court backlog delays associated with global health restrictions, Edgar was granted a reduced bond of $50,000 and allowed to walk out of custody to await trial. The decision deeply outraged Libby's family and the local community, who were forced to watch a suspected killer walk the streets of their town. The tension boiled over on December 16, 2021. Darcy Bass walked into a local convenience store and came face to face with the man accused of taking her daughter's life. Overcome by unimaginable grief and rage, Darcy confronted Edgar, shouting at him before chasing him into the parking lot, where she used a metal chain from his truck bed to strike his windshield, demanding to know why he had destroyed her daughter's life. Rather than showing any understanding for a grieving mother's pain, Edgar immediately filed criminal charges against Darcy, leading to her brief arrest before prosecutors wisely dismissed all charges against her. On January 24, 2022, Edgar's formal murder trial commenced in Sabine County under strict security measures. For 2 days, district attorneys presented damning forensic evidence, text messages, phone tracking records, and witness accounts detailing Edgar's history of domestic abuse. But on the third day of proceedings, January 27, 2022, Edgar failed to appear in the courtroom. Authorities discovered that he had deliberately allowed the battery on his electronic monitoring ankle bracelet to die, cutting off his tracking signal and vanishing into the night. In an extraordinary legal decision, the presiding judge ordered the trial to proceed in absentia, leaving Edgar's defense chair completely empty as a symbol of his cowardice. On January 28, 2022, after just 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict, sentencing the absent Matthew Edgar to 99 years in state prison. A massive multi-agency manhunt was launched to track down the convicted killer, led by the United States Marshals Service and the Texas Department of Public Safety, who placed Edgar on their 10 most wanted fugitives list. For 11 long, agonizing months, Edgar evaded capture. Libby's mother, Darcy, refused to let the search go cold. Believing that Edgar was hiding locally with the assistance of friends and family, Darcy created homemade wanted posters, distributed flyers across East Texas, and built an online community titled Justice for Libby Lewis that gathered thousands of supporters advocating for his arrest. Darcy's instincts proved entirely correct. On the evening of December 29, 2022, nearly a full year after his escape, law enforcement received a precise tip, pointing to a residence in northeastern Sabine County, located just yards away from Edgar's grandparents' property. Under the cover of a heavy thunderstorm at 8:30 at night, specialized teams of US Marshals, county deputies, and state game wardens surrounded the house. Through night vision equipment, officers spotted Edgar stepping onto the back porch to light a cigarette. Tactical teams moved in swiftly, taking Edgar into custody without resistance. Inside the residence, officers also arrested Edgar's mother, charging her with hindering apprehension for aiding her son during his time as a fugitive. On January 3, 2023, Matthew Edgar was brought into court in heavy physical restraints to face formal sentencing. Libby's grandmother took the stand to deliver a powerful victim impact statement, looking Edgar in the eyes and describing the permanent destruction he had inflicted on their family. The judge formally confirmed his sentence of 99 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole consideration until May 31, 2052, when Edgar will be 55 years old. Today, he serves his sentence inside the Wainwright unit, stripped of visitation privileges. Although Matthew Edgar stole a bright future, he could never erase the profound legacy of love that Libby left behind. Her mother, Darcy, established the Libby Lewis Memorial Scholarship, which annually provides financial support to ambitious nursing students pursuing their dreams in healthcare, ensuring that Libby's passion for healing lives continues forever. Her story stands as a permanent, powerful warning against domestic control, reminding the world that true strength lies in standing up for justice and never allowing a victim's light to be extinguished by cowardice. Thank you so much for watching this complete episode of Brian's Criminal Unmasking. If this powerful story of Libby Lewis opened your eyes to the dangers of toxic relationships and the importance of justice, please take a moment right now to hit that like button, share this video on your social media, and subscribe to the channel for more unfiltered true crime breakdowns. What are your thoughts on Edgar's escape and his 99-year sentence? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next case.